Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Ann, and I am a science fiction fantasy author. Welcome to my audio blog, Seeing Isn't Believing, where I talk about my writing journey and the struggles and triumphs I go through as an indie author who happens to be visually impaired. Thank you for coming along on the ride with me. Hi everyone, it's Rebecca Ann here, author of the sci-fi fantasy book Lightning Proof, and I am coming to you today for my very first, what I like to call, audio blog. And I know you might be wondering, what is the difference between a podcast and an audio blog? And I will tell you. A podcast usually has information. Like, there are a lot of podcasts about writing and my favorite, Disney and Broadway, and all of these have, information about a subject. But what I want to do is something a little different. I want to do a blog, but I want it to be audio. And I'm going to be posting it on YouTube. I actually started a YouTube channel, but I realized that doing so on camera was very hard. And so I'm going to do audio. I know that's not usually the norm for YouTube, but since this is not a podcast, I don't want to upload it to iTunes. So I hope that all of you out there will still listen and enjoy, even though my channel from here on out is going to be mostly audio. So, let's get going with today's entry. And today I want to basically reintroduce myself and talk a little bit about my writing journey. And, how I got started as a writer and why I decided to become an author. And why I decided to make one of my main characters in my book, Lightning Proof, visually impaired. So, the first thing, I am a science fiction fantasy author, and I published my debut novel, Lightning Proof, as I stated earlier. It is available on Amazon, and I will link that below in the description box. And my books, I love science fiction, and I love fantasy. But I also love books with heart. And I love books that focus on friendship and family. And I just realized that there aren't a lot of sci-fi fantasy books where the center of the story is focused on a friendship or family. A lot of the ones that I've come across are romance, which is not a bad thing. Romance can be great and is very, very popular. And it's a part of life, but there are people out there like myself who want to read about a sister relationship, or a relationship between two best friends, or a relationship between a mother and daughter. This is, I believe, what sets my books apart. And this is why I started writing the books that I did, because I felt like there was something missing in my favorite genre. And so how I got the idea for Lightning Proof was actually, believe it or not, the movie Frozen. I love Frozen, and it actually got me back into loving Disney. But that's another segment altogether. But I loved the whole concept of Elsa, being afraid of her powers, but coming to terms with them. And so that's what inspired the idea. And then the story took on a life of its own. And I realized halfway through, I think it was draft 3 or 4, there have been 7 drafts, that I wanted to make Victoria the one that shoots lightning. She's a lighter and she shoots lightning from her fingers. I wanted to make her visually impaired like myself. And this is why not only is my book a science fiction fantasy dystopian, but it is also an Ownvoice book. OWN. Ownvoice book. And if you don't know what an Ownvoice book is, an Ownvoice book is a book where, say, for example, like in mine, Victoria is visually impaired. Like me, the author, is visually impaired. So an Ownvoice book is where the author is writing sort of from personal experience, but basically giving the character something that they similar to them, like me, like I'm making Victoria visually impaired. And I did this because I started thinking, if I had the ability to shoot lightning from my fingers, I would be terrified because I wouldn't be able to see where it was going, and you can't always rely on hearing, and, because, Victoria could be in a crowded room and not be able to hear where her light is going. So I decided to make her visually impaired, not only because I'd never written a character who was visually impaired for any story that I wanted to publish, but because characters who are blind or visually impaired, over the course of many years, there are many books, many TV shows where the character is not portrayed accurately. And there's a lot of stereotypes, which I will talk about that. There is a lot of, blogs and YouTube channels out there that do a great job of, covering that topic. But there are a lot of stereotypes, such as every single blind and visually impaired person wears dark glasses. No. I don't, unless I'm outside. And there's a lot more that I can't think of right now, but I will link my favorite YouTube channel, who happens to be Molly Burke. Molly is amazing. And her channel is awesome. And go check her videos out. She's incredible. But, so that, is why I decided to make Victoria visually impaired. And it's been challenging to write, but it's also been very freeing because I don't have to describe what I can't see because Victoria can't see it. And Victoria's vision is actually a little bit worse than mine. But I have experienced her vision, so I know what she can see and what she can't. So now that I've talked all about my book, I want to talk a little bit about how I started writing. And I started writing at age 12. I started writing fan fiction. And actually, my writing career really started when I was 5. When my grandma would take me upstairs to a finished room in her attic and tell me stories. But I would set the scene. I would tell her the characters. I would tell her what was going on. And I would always interrupt her. And that is how my writing career started, and my imagination soared from there. And I've been writing constantly since I learned how to. And I really hope that my books reach the audience that they're meant to reach. I am, as far as updates go, as of now, I have sent the final draft as of right now, of the sequel, which is called Dangerous Memories. It's a sequel to Lightning Proof. I've sent it off to my editor, and I am going to be outlining the 3rd book, and I'm going to be working on a short-ish story that I'm going to give away free to those who sign up for my email list, and I will have that linked below as well. And I will also, for those that sign up for my email list, I will have bonus episodes of my blog. I'm not really sure what those bonus episodes will contain yet, but I'm thinking me reading sneak peeks from the sequel, and also posting it in text form as well. For those that... And that's it for today's episode. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do so on Facebook, Rebecca Ann. The username is R lowercase writes fantasy, all one word. On Twitter, it's the same as on Facebook. Rebecca Ann, R, lowercase, writes fantasy. Or on Instagram, the same as Facebook and Twitter. Have a great day, everyone. Remember, seeing isn't believing.